On this episode, we'll discuss church giving insights that leaders shouldn't ignore in 2026. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, the show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. I'm Kendall Connor, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jess Moore. How are you today, Jess?
Hey, Kendall. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited because we get to talk about a topic today that I know that you are especially
Oh, yeah.
passionate about. Yeah, generosity in the church.
Yes.
I was going back in the archives today before you were co-hosting on our show. You actually came on and you have talked about this topic multiple times. So I think this might be
Yes.
important to you.
Yes, it is so important to me. Just from my personal experience with God's faithfulness in this, I feel like if we don't spread the word, people are missing out on seeing God's goodness. So, yes, super
Yeah.
passionate on a personal level. And then, two, just here at Ministry Brand. So, yeah, super
Yes.
excited about this conversation and our guest.
Yes, it is not every day that we get to have someone joining us on the show that is from our team here at Ministry Brands. So I am super excited to be able to introduce her to all of our listeners today. It's going to be a really great episode. I know that she too is really passionate about the church and
Mm.
church giving, generosity, all these things surrounding ministry. And our guest today is going to be Nicole White. And so, what I love about this is that we get to talk through all of this subject with her and hear her perspective on it. And we've got an exciting resource that we're going to get to share with you. But if you've never gotten to connect with Nicole before, I want to help all of our listeners to be able to get an idea who we're going to be hearing from today. So, let me go through our bio with you. She is on our marketing team with us here at Ministry Brands, and she gets to help churches with things like technology so that they can serve their community better. She's especially passionate about making giving really simple, really accessible, and meaningful for every ministry. She's got over 10 years of experience in tech and digital transformation. She has led high impact work at companies like Meta, no big deal, aka Facebook, right? I'm kidding, of course. It's incredible that she's got to work with that company. She's super knowledgeable on all things tech, but she also has a great heart. She has
Mm.
been an advocate for close to 20 years for accessibility and being able to help ensure that everyone can fully participate in the life of the church.
Mm.
How
Yep.
amazing is that bio?
Amazing. Also, something that is near and dear to my heart. So, I love that.
Yes, this is going to be a good one. Before we jump into our conversation, I'd like to encourage all of our listeners at home to hit that follow button. We want to make sure that you're subscribed wherever you're enjoying our show. We want to make sure that you don't miss a thing as we're putting out these resources like today's episode and the resource that we're going to be giving away at the end. And so make sure that you're subscribed so that you can get all of the great things. All right, without further ado, let's welcome Nicole to the show. How are you, Nicole?
Hi. Hey, Kendall and Jess. Very,
Hi,
very
friend.
good today and super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is so exciting. We read the public bio, Nicole, but I want to feel like our listeners, I want them to get to know you even more than that. What's something that doesn't make that public bio that maybe all your family and friends would know about you?
I think something that's interesting about me, which would be fun to articulate for a podcast because they can't exactly like see me unless they watch the video, but I don't necessarily look like someone who is in seminary and serves on worship team and helps lead a Celebrate Recovery ministry and is super active in the church. I look like somebody who really loves Halloween because I am. Um, so there's kind of a juxtaposition there.
Yeah.
I'm packaged in God's image.
Everybody is going to pause the podcast and be like, I got to pull this up on YouTube
I've gotta
right
pull this
now.
up
So,
on YouTube
way to
to
go,
see.
Nicole. We love that. Get those
Look at
views
that.
up.
I'm
It's
here
so
for my
great.
own SEO, right?
I love it. A little marketing joke there for anyone.
Yes.
That's
I
so
love it.
fun. I love that, and I love that we get to work with you on the marketing team. Like it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun on our team, and I think
Me
at the
too.
heart of it is what you spoke to of helping the church You
Mm.
mentioned being involved on worship and being involved
Mhm.
in Celebrate Recovery, I think you said, which
Yep.
Mhm.
and I know it is an incredible ministry. So at the heart of all we get to do, I always like to tell people like it's like we just help to get it all of these resources out to these churches is the way that I think
Yeah.
about it.
Mhm. Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're here to do. It's one of the big reasons I joined Ministry Brands. I wanted to help, I love helping my church. I love helping all churches that I get to go to through Celebrate Recovery, but now I get to expand that to like 90,000 faith-based organizations. Like
Yeah.
that's
Amazing.
awesome. And
Pretty
so thrilled
incredible.
to be here to help do that.
Well, I know that we have a new resource that has just come out. We've just released. All of our team has been working on. I know that you've been a big part of that. Can you tell us a little bit about what this resource is?
Yeah. So you're talking about the 2026 annual church giving report, and this is a report we've released the last couple of years, and this is actually the first year that we've had a really dedicated Catholic, parish report.
Yes.
Um, and so I was very excited on just how we were able to really expand upon it in for 2026. And every year we partner with a third party called Parable Group, and they are there to kind of assist ministry brands to make sure that the data that we are capturing to put into this report is not just meaningful, but that it's not just ministry brands.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
any company can go out there and say, like, hey, look at all the cool stuff that we do for giving. But having that third party validation and having such a respectful organization like Parable Group to kind of help come in and partner with us to get this
Yes.
from non ministry brands customers um, really helps us get a real clear view on giving holistically, like beyond
Mhm.
ministry brands. And then we here at Ministry Brands, we also survey our own customers on both the Catholic and the Protestant side of the house, and capture that data and put that in the report as well. So what you get as the output is this phenomenal report that really gives you a broad view on how giving is working for churches, what isn't working for churches, what's working for parishes and dios. I mean, everything is in these two
Yes.
reports really clearly, and we're just excited to get it out and in the hands of as many people as possible so that they can,
Yes.
learn what other churches are doing, see what the trends are, and then
Mm.
help inform their ministry work and their giving plans moving forward.
I love that. And Jess, I know that you have been around this report for a while, and you've seen how this has impacted church leaders. Can you
Yeah.
speak to that at all? The success that we've seen from this in the past.
Absolutely. I think every year we've done this, I've also had the privilege of doing a webinar, and so get to actually sit down and chat with the creators of the report at Parable Group and
Yes.
kind of dig into the information. They elaborate a little bit more about obviously survey results, but who they surveyed and how they distilled the information and all
Yeah.
that. It's First of all, it's a little bit different every year, which I think is really interesting, and it speaks to, our culture. I feel like everything's moving so quickly. Technology is a huge part of generosity in churches. I mean,
Yes.
you cannot ignore that. And so, if you are one of the churches that hasn't adopted digital giving, please read this report because it's time,
Yes.
friends. But beyond that, just being aware of like different ways. I mean, right? Like I know this sounds kind of silly, but companies that want your money because you have to purchase something, they make it as easy as possible for you to buy something. So churches and nonprofits who are facilitating generosity, it
Mhm.
is to the church's benefit and honestly to the donor's benefit to align
Yes.
with that streamlined process, just because that's what they're accustomed to these days. And I think this report tells that story very, very well. It's compelling. It really makes you kind of pause and think, okay, like Nicole said, as you're looking at your giving plans going into this year, we're almost halfway, which is kind of mind blowing. Like
Phew.
it just
Yeah.
turned 2026, but we're getting close to halfway here. So as you're looking at plans and as you're asking God, like, where do we go from here? How do we continue to facilitate generosity? How do we allow our congregation to be more obedient in this area? Let this report just be insightful to you as you make those decisions.
I love that. And, so the way that we've kind of framing today's episode is I took a deep dive into this ebook, this report that we've put together, and I was able to kind of bring out some of the findings. And so, what Nicole and Jess and I plan to do today is to dive deep into these insights that we're saying for 2026 that church leaders shouldn't ignore when it
Mhm.
comes to all things church giving. So, I'm kind of excited to jump into these. We've got a couple of them laid out. Nicole, do you want to take us through our first one and jump right in?
Yeah, and Jess did a really good job teasing that up. And it's all about digital giving, digital giving, digital giving. So 55% of surveyed churches said giving increased in 2025. And among churches that grew, increases were driven more by digital giving than by cash or check. And many of those churches also reported in the report that they saw new donors through
Mhm.
digital giving.
Mm.
So it all goes back to digital giving. The last report that we had showed that it was a trend. Now we know this is the norm. Everybody
Yeah.
should have digital giving, every church, every parish.
If they wanna grow, right?
If they want to grow, which we hope that's the whole
Everybody
purpose,
wants
right?
to
We're
grow.
here to grow the
Right,
kingdom.
right.
Well, something that's positive that I feel like I'm getting out of that is that church giving is growing. Number
Mhm.
one, like I
Mhm.
think every church leader said yes and amen
Mhm.
when they heard that overall church giving is growing. But I'm also kind of hearing you mentioned digital giving that kind of the growth is coming through some new habits, and so maybe
Mhm.
like we've got to pick up on some new things if we want to see that in our own ministries, right? More than anything, I feel like it's positive that the giving growth is happening, but
Mhm.
it's not necessarily happening across the board, the same thing for everybody, so it may not be applying to every single church. There may be church leaders out there that are saying, well, it's great that church giving is growing across the board, but we're not necessarily seeing that. What would you say is something from these insights that maybe you talked about digital giving? What is something that we need to apply in order to get that to happen in our own ministries?
Well, I think a really important thing that churches need to try to do is when they have to talk about it.
Mm.
I know. I could feel all the Protestant churches just in my heart going, whoa. But you have to talk about it, number one. Like
Mhm.
we can't, these people are giving because they are feeling led and called by the Holy Spirit. And sometimes we need to be the facilitator of that. Um, and help lead that, help shepherd that. So the first thing I would say, talk about it. The next thing I would say is you really have to understand your donor behavior.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
knowing how your donors are giving and tithing, are you seeing a lot of cash and check? Like what is your demographic? We have a lot of churches that we serve at ministry brands that maybe they're smaller, they're older, they have an older demographic that maybe they are more cash and check forward.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
maybe digital giving is not like the perfect fit for them. But again, to Jess's point, if you want to grow
Yeah.
and you want
Yes.
to continue to bring in, more people to your congregation or your parish, it's really key to make sure that something is available to make it easy for those new donors to kind of come in. Um, but just knowing like how they're giving,
Yes.
where they're giving, when they're giving, is it
Mhm.
seasonal? Are they doing recurring giving? Is that set up like just having a real good pulse on what that looks like for
Yes.
your church is really critical.
Yeah, let's kind of double click on you said new donors, and the reason why this is more specific and applicable to new donors is because um, many of your congregants, if they have already started participating in
Yeah. Yeah.
digital giving. I feel like we need to say it like 6 times every time
Digital
now that we say it.
giving.
But if they have already started giving at your church in that way, through whatever platform you're using, we'll talk about ministry brands for a quick minute. They get to the giving form, and most of our most platforms out there work similarly, but they're going to pull up the form, and then if it's their first time that they're giving and you don't have digital wallets set up, they're going to have to pull out a credit card and then
Yes.
enter all of those many digits with their thumbs and put in their
And this is
billing
while they're checking
information,
their
and
kids
it's just
Yes.
into the kids
right.
ministry, pulling out, "Mommy, I have a
Right. So
donut.
it's
Can I
just
have
a
another?"
lot. Yes, it's a lot happening at one time. And, I would hope that everyone kind of knows what digital wallets are at this point, but if not, it's literally like a wallet that's like virtual, like in the
Yes.
interwebs. It's magic. And so their wallets are already saved there, whether that's Google Pay or Apple Pay. And so at that point, they just need to log in. Most people have their credentials kind of already saved on their device, right? And like locked with their bio.
Yeah.
And so they can literally just log into that and then select a credit card that's already been saved to the account. So they're not entering digits, they're not entering security
Yes.
codes, all of that. And so it does make it so much faster. So this is for new folks. If they've sat down and they're like, I see that your church is doing incredible work. And like Nicole said, talk about it. And
Yes.
I could go on a whole other tangent about inviting people to give at your ministry and how to do
Yes.
that well. But if you're talking about the impact that your church is having in your community and they're like, that is so rad, I want to help. I want to be a part of that. Then it just makes it so much faster and easier for them to
100%.
participate. Like literally within seconds, they are now a new donor and participating in your mission. They still have the functionality to set that up on a recurring gift, even through Venmo. We have Venmo now. That whole thing is so cool the way that it works in our platform.
Yes.
And so, anyway, just a little bit of emphasis on why this is making a difference and why this
Yes.
has become less of a trend and more of a norm because of the functionality is just really easy, really stinking easy. So, as a church, you set that up on the back end. Again, it's a number of like, maybe, I think it's like 2 or 3 clicks to enable
Crazy.
this on your giving forms. And then people can give that way moving forward and just be part of what you're doing so fast.
Powerful, powerful stuff. What I'm really hearing that what does this really mean for churches? That giving is changing, that it's growing, all these different things. What I know is that church leaders shouldn't necessarily be asking, like, okay, is giving up or down?
Mhm.
Really, the question to be asking is what is driving the change? How they can make things
Right.
more accessible, how they can be ready on platforms that maybe they haven't tried before,
Yep.
and just be paying attention to what is happening in the world around us. And so that
Mhm.
kind of brings us to the second thing, the second insight that we want to share that's taken from this report, insights that church leaders shouldn't ignore when it comes to digital giving or giving in 2026. And that is that digital giving is now a core part of how
Mhm.
churches receive generosity. So to kind of jump into a little stat of that, I'll share this from our report, is that churches that offer digital giving said that on average, 41% of their giving came through digital methods, which is kind of impressive because that is
That is.
even an increase from 2024 to 2025.
Yep.
And so now heading into or as we're in 2026, and Jess, you kind of blew me away when you said that we're almost halfway through. That's kind of
I know, isn't
shocking.
that wild?
It's even more. And so this is growing. How do y'all feel about this? Like, is this something that y'all think like is going to decrease or is it going to keep
Oh, it's
increasing?
definitely not gonna decrease. This is only gonna increase. I mean, like, and, like, I really wanna make sure that, like, we talk a lot about, like, the different segments of people that attend church and how they're giving,
Mm,
Mhm.
We don't want this isn't necessarily like you're trying to shun your older demographic or deter them or switch them or convince them to
yeah.
Right.
switch to digital giving,
Good
right?
call
Like,
out.
if we have a really sweet elder at the church who loves to give $100 a week in cash in the back box at the church,
Right.
let them continue to do that. We don't need
Right.
Yeah.
them. We don't need to sit and set up their digital wallets on their
Yeah.
flip phones. Like that's
Mhm.
that's okay. I think it's key to talk about like that this is for new donors and this is like the next generation of
Yeah.
church
Yeah.
and
Right.
of church body.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
the incoming generation, the Gen Z is the like, I have 2 Gen Z kids. My daughter is a digital trainer at a major brand company now. Like she's not in
Yeah.
high school. Like
Wow.
Mhm.
these are the 20 somethings that are attending churches
Yes.
and they don't know any other way.
Mm.
We laugh, but they don't know how to write a check. They don't have checkbooks. So I think it goes back to what Jess was really digging on, which is accessibility, and not like
Mhm.
accessibility in the sense of like for people with disabilities, which we want to make it accessible for them too, but accessible in the sense that it's available.
Right.
Yes.
And you're making sure as a church leader that you're hitting upon every part of your audience. Do you have these options available? Many times at our church, we'll have the QR code up there. That's digital giving. You're giving through your phone,
Mhm.
you're scanning
Right.
something. You may have like a tap tag or something like that where you're tapping on the pew or the seat in front of you to give. That's all part of digital giving.
That's right.
But part of that conversation also needs to be, hey, you can give through this code, or we still welcome checks, we still welcome cash,
Yes.
and
Yes.
there is a spot for you and a place for you to give from your heart and feel called to provide to this ministry in
Mhm.
the way that you are comfortable with. So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily like we're trying to shift people off of it and onto something. This is really church leaders paving the way
Yeah.
for new people to come in and be a part of the kingdom and have an accessible way to support these growing ministries that you're trying to have.
Mm.
So much great stuff there, and I feel like the overall the sense that I'm getting with this is that you just want to make sure that that it's easy for people, right? That
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
when people are prompted to be generous and they want to be a part of what God is doing there in your ministry, that you have things set up for them to make it so that they're not having to jump through a bunch of hoops, and to your point, that they have lots of options that they can do what's going to make sense to them. Uh,
Exactly.
that leads us to our next thing that we really take away from this new resource that we've put together. Number three, the insight that we're seeing is that churches that make giving easier tend to see stronger generosity. And
Mhm.
what I can kind of tell you with that is what we've seen in the report, the stats that we're able to pull together is that churches that offer digital wallets, recurring giving, and I want to make sure that we hit that one,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
giving on their live stream were nearly twice as likely to report an increase in giving than churches that did not offer all three of those things.
Mhm.
That's a
Mhm.
lot. That's a lot of info right there. Can
There's like
y'all
three
expand
stats
on that
we
a
want.
little bit? Yeah.
Yeah. No, because it's so good. And it really hits on everything we've talked about up to this point too, right? It's how do we make this process of acting on generosity really simple,
Mhm.
and catching your donors in the moment that they're in.
Yes.
Because again, we're all church people. We go to church. I feel very blessed. We have a campus pastor at my campus who always talks about giving, always is
Mhm.
able to tie it back to the what we're doing to support it. And I always tell him like, "Thank you, you make my job so easy." Um, but not everybody does, and that's okay
Yeah.
because it's really it doesn't necessarily need to be just about that. It's just,
Mm.
hey, as I'm checking my kid into kids ministry, is there something available to me if I want to also give?
Mm.
Yeah.
Because I can't be digging in for cash. Is there a QR code I can scan as the TV is, in the lobby is kind of just going through the slideshow of cool
Mm.
things happening at the church that I can be like, ooh, let me whip out my phone real quick. I forgot I wanted to
Yeah.
donate this week or I wanted to tithe. So it's
Mhm.
really just about providing those different options and anything that we can do to help every attendee participate in person, online,
Yeah.
because we really want to make sure we're focused on the online people as well.
Right.
And that is like to me like something that I think we can touch lightly on. There's two ways of making that accessible. There is that we have older folks that can't drive anymore, and they
Right.
are so excited that they can participate in their church if the church is online. But if you don't have a way to accept donations digitally, then that makes it really challenging. Or, consider that person, cool, no, they send me a check.
Right.
How many people do you have with disabilities at your church that are homebound, that the
Right.
only way that
Mm.
they can participate in your weekly sermons and homilies is through live streams? And
Mhm.
is there an easy and accessible way for them to give, set up recurring giving, and just make it simple for them? But
Mm.
it doesn't mean that it's less meaningful. It's all going to the same bank account and it's all going to serve
Right.
the same types of ministries that you're trying to build at your churches.
Yeah.
It's really just about, how many barriers do we have to
Right.
eliminate so that people can just freely give with their heart?
Mm. Yeah. I think too, Nicole, you're so sweetly bringing the heart behind why you want to offer these different methods. And I'll kind of take the technical side of things of how to facilitate that. And
Yeah.
so, we recently released an amazing feature. It's something that I actually personally, just a little personal note, I've been working here for 7 years. And this is something that I have wanted for our client base for so long. But Nicole, you're talking about people who are watching online. And Nicole and I both have kids with special needs. So this is why it's something that keeps coming up. But there are seasons where we aren't able to attend church because we're in the hospital for a while. And so we are joining our church online. And so live streaming, we've now just released something with our live streaming platform where that same QR code can be popped up on the screen, and not really a slide where they're trying to like follow the camera to the slide, presentation on your stage, but it's right there on the screen. They can also
Yes.
click right on that, and then the giving form appears on their computer screen or whatever device they're watching from. So that is very cool. That is something that I think you need to be made aware of. So that's one of the features
Yeah.
that Kendall listed here at the beginning,
Love that.
right? We've already extensively talked about digital wallets. That's what that live stream giving is. And then lastly, recurring giving. Y'all know I love this, but with
Yes.
recurring giving, this is your automatic faithfulness, right? This does not mean there's not intentionality behind your gift. Everyone who gives, I give recurring at my church. I get an email every Sunday that says, "Thanks for your gift to Church on the Move." I don't open the email because I know what it says. But when that notification pops up, I have trained myself to pray over my gift because I am
Mm.
not praying over my gift
Wow,
when
I
I'm
love
actually
that.
physically doing it in the service. That notification comes usually later in the afternoon. And so I'm able to pray over my gift in that moment. What that does too for the church is it allows the church to budget so much better. And so as those recurring gifts are locked in and they're able to track that and
Yeah.
project what the church will get month over month, the impact that they can have is proactive instead of reactive. And so that's really, really powerful as well. So it's something that I know that this is something that our churches don't talk about often because it feels less impactful, less emotional, maybe. But it truly is when you understand the benefits of it, both to you as a donor, as a giver, and a participant at your church, and as a church, it is so helpful and it's so impactful. So, those three functions, the digital wallets, recurring giving, and the live stream giving, those have made a significant impact based on this report in churches when they have
Yes.
them enabled versus when they don't.
I love that you were able to expand on all of those and also just hearing y'all's heart, talking about why these different areas are important to you. That's so important. I do want to expand really quickly on the recurring giving side
Mhm.
because it brings us into our next insight that we are able to learn from this giving report. Number 4 is recurring giving is becoming a key source for churches' financial stability. Jess, you alluded to this. It is a
Yes.
big thing. The stat from the report that I want to share is that recurring giving made up 35% of digital giving in 2025.
That's
And that
awesome.
actually increased 5.4% year over year. It is growing, it's becoming more and more important. And I
Mm,
love what you kind of said with that, Jess, is that it creates a predictability.
yeah.
You can budget better. You're able to really know what's going to be coming in, and your church will be better for it because you're able to have a little bit more insight into the future, where you're going to go, where you're going to take this thing. And I feel like that makes a big difference.
Mm, a
It
huge
definitely
difference.
does. It is. It's super huge. I think everything Jess shared, about recurring is key, right? It's about creating, predictability.
Mhm.
It's about, I can tell you even from our Celebrate Recovery ministry, like, we are blessed that we have a budget for that. I know many churches that have some sort of recovery program that do not have a church budget that is
Mm,
for that.
Mm.
But the way that we get that church budget is through giving, and
right.
so, like, that is a critical piece and a critical ministry at my own church, that we know we need X amount of dollars to support year over year.
Yeah.
And so having the ability to very easily set up recurring giving and ensure that that is a predictable budget year over year is really key to just, I mean, I would love for churches and parishes to just consider the ministries that they currently have in motion now. What
Yeah.
do you have that is completely stable, status quo, budgeted and planned for? But then where do you want to go? What's that next step?
Yeah.
And one of the very easy ways to get there is to really encourage that recurring gift.
Mhm.
And speaking a little bit about what Jess said earlier, this isn't impersonal. This is
Right.
again
Yes.
like we need to remember that when people give, they are giving from their heart. They are giving because they feel called or the Spirit has led them to do so. And it is our job as church leaders and ministry leaders and just people of the church body to help shepherd that.
Mhm.
And so that we can use the gifts that are here in the world
Yes.
to expand on the kingdom and create these ministries and bring more people to the church and closer to God. So it's just a critical piece that once you get it set up, it just becomes seamless and easy and way less stress on your church
Mhm.
treasurers or admins or whoever is managing the budget
Right.
to know that, year over year, you can rely on X amount of dollars because of the recurring giving. And I
Mm.
think that that increase is just a key point there. It's only
Yes.
going to grow. I mean, when we talk about, um, that it was 35% of digital giving and digital giving is at 41% overall. That's humongous. I mean,
Yeah.
that's such a huge stat.
100%.
So, yeah.
I even think about from my own ministry journey, and I've been a part of a church plant for almost 15 years now. And what's crazy about that is we've been through many different seasons with different buildings and building projects and things like that. And I can tell you that when we were first beginning, one of the first questions when you go to a bank or you're trying to get a loan, you're trying to do all these different things, they number
Mm.
one, they want to know how much you're bringing in. The question used to be, though, how many, they would use the phrase, I don't love the phrase, but how many giving units do you have? How many people are actively giving to your ministry? The question now has shifted more recently. They want to know how many people do you have set up for recurring giving that are
Mm.
consistently
Interesting.
giving. And so
Interesting.
like it is becoming something that's more important than ever, not only to the day-to-day for the church, but as you are growing this thing and you're
Mm.
scaling it to bigger and better things, as you're growing in your city and you're serving more people, it is going to be something that comes up more and more frequently. So there's the practical side of that.
Yeah.
And then there's also just like the day-to-day of, you want to make it easier for churches. And it does. I love the phrase that you use over it. Remind me what it is though, Jess. You call it something else. Not
Automatic
recurring,
faithfulness.
automatic faithfulness. I love that.
One
I
one
love
more
that.
little key piece to this, because you mentioned even applying for a loan. Just a reminder too, recurring giving is the function, like the technical function
Mm,
behind pledging as well. And
Yeah.
so as you're building those campaigns, if you are looking to do any sort of like growth campaigns or capital campaign or anything like that, the actual function that drives that functionality is recurring giving. And so this all kind of ties back to stewardship, right? So you as a church can facilitate recurring giving, and this is the best way to approach it, because at the heart of it, that's what it is. We want to be a good church. We want to be good stewards of the gifts that are coming through our hands here at this church. And so that means stewardship means using those dollars well, understanding what's coming in, what's going out. And so we want to invite you to participate in stewardship with us through this practice of recurring giving and automatic
mm,
faithfulness. And then beyond that, if you've got a specific campaign that you're looking to do, hey, we need to build a whole new kidsman wing on our
that's
church,
right. Right.
within the next year, you can pledge a certain amount, and then the folks can literally give to that automatically through recurring
That's
giving,
good.
and follow through with their financial commitment to the church. So, all things
So good.
considered, it really boils down to stewardship. But yes, the automatic faithfulness is such a great key. Obviously, growing part of generosity in churches. And so get a little bit more comfortable with talking about it and offering it, when you do speak about giving, when you do, just don't forget to mention it. I feel like even at my church, they do a great job, like you said, Nicole. Like my church does a great job of facilitating giving, cheerful generosity every single week. Like we clap, we cheer, it's great, everybody's involved. But never is it mentioned. It's like just
Mm,
scan this QR code to understand the ways to
yeah,
give. But I
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, you can even set up gifts to draft automatically at whatever frequency you feel comfortable,
right,
but know that we do
right.
offer that." Just throw it out there and see what happens.
Well, and Jess, you mentioned something that is a great point, and that is getting comfortable with this, getting comfortable talking
Yeah.
about it, and that brings us to our last insight that we're going to be able to share today. But what I love is that we've got so many more insights that you'll be able to check out in this report and this full ebook. And so, our last one that we want to talk about today is that churches that talk about giving consistently tend to see more people participate. The stat that I want to share from our report is that we saw that 1 in 5 churches said that they avoid talking about money or giving directly.
Mm.
However, the churches that talk about it at least monthly were 1.7 times more likely to report new donors coming in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that stat kind of really stood out to me. I don't
It
know
did
about
to me
y'all.
too. Yeah, I was
Oh,
like,
and
"Wait,
then
feels like such a duh moment. Guys, come on."
right?
Sorry.
And to add to that, the parishes that communicated this openly were 6 times more
Wow.
likely to be.
Crazy.
6
Wow.
times,
Wow.
right? And so, like, I grew up Catholic and Orthodox. I now go to a Protestant church, so I have been through all sorts of giving and tithing through my whole lifetime.
Yeah.
And so I can understand why that stat feels so large on the Catholic side and the
Mm,
parishes, because to me, it's like it's built into the theology of like how the church operates on that
right.
side of the
Mm,
house, right? And I know on like, the more Protestant or non-denominational churches, it's a little harder, right?
Mm,
One of the
yeah.
things that I love that my pastor recently did for Easter Sunday was he very intentionally talked about during his giving, part of the service, he talked about how we can give, but he positioned it in such a way that it didn't feel like he was outcasting those that maybe can't give.
mm.
Mm,
And I think that might
Interesting.
be kind of part of what we're trying to overcome here is like, we know that, hey, in my demographic, in my church, we have such a population of people that are, they're at the food bank every week and they're really
Mm,
struggling.
wow.
We want to make sure that we're giving to them, we're not taking from them. And
mm.
that is so understandable, but there is a way to frame it so that you are still able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
encourage and shepherd the gifts that you're able to get from your congregation to help them understand like this is how we support one another. This is
Right.
how we make sure that
Yeah.
we can fund the food banks and the food
Mm,
pantries that we have for our community and for the person you may be sitting next to this Sunday.
mm.
Um, so like I think it's maybe that we need to ask church leaders to just really sit and prayerfully consider how they should be talking about it. And I'm sure we're going to give some good talking points here about like things that they could do. Um,
Mm,
but I can tell you, like, I've talked to lots of different customers, I've seen lots of different data, even outside of this report. This is the biggest hurdle to overcome.
Yeah.
Is you see that churches just avoid speaking about it entirely
yeah.
and then they struggle because they can't have the funding that they need to start a new
Mm,
ministry, to hire a new, youth pastor or worship leader.
Right.
And
Right.
so I would frame how you're going to talk about it as like an act of worship. If you are
yeah.
Mm,
able to participate in giving as this act of worship and as part of, how you are honoring the Lord,
Mm,
and how we are supposed to be called to support our communities and help,
yeah.
go through all the Beatitudes. That's all over. That's the Bible. That's just biblical, right? That's
yeah.
period. That's the end. Like we're here to help.
Yeah.
And the only way that we're going to do that is if we unfortunately, the world that we live in is
Yeah.
tied to money. And
Right.
that's the way that we know that we can shepherd and help
Yeah.
those in our community. So talking about it, and again, like you brought up a great point, Kendall, it doesn't have to be every week. You can talk about it even once a month. Start there.
Right.
If you're really trying or struggling, start
Yes.
there. I know all these churches have their own team meetings, practice. Hey,
Yes.
this is how I want to talk about it. What do you all
Mm.
think? How
Yeah.
does that sound?
Yeah.
How does it feel?
Yeah.
But like supporting one another and really showing up as a community to help frame it in a way that will resonate with your community and with your congregations and parishes goes a very long way.
That's so good.
So much great wisdom there, Nicole, and it just gets me thinking a little bit. And like the stat showed us is that it was the churches that would at least talk about it at least once a month, where
Mhm.
that brought an increase to this. I think the overall thing, elephant in the room, is that churches they're afraid to that they're going to come off as under the wrong way. They're going to look like, oh, we're all about the money or something like
Sure.
that.
Right.
And so like that's like the sensitivity that we're trying to have. However, I love that you brought up something as simple as, when we give, it is a part of our worship. And
Mhm.
as we begin to communicate these things and get a little maybe out of our comfort zone, it can directly tie into more impact, more lives being
Right.
changed, more people getting to experience the goodness of God through our church and through our people. And one just quick little nugget of wisdom, one something that I feel like is going really well for my own church team is that we were finding ourselves getting a little bit uncomfortable talking about this. We were trying to figure out what that right balance is. And something that we put into place that's been working so well for us is we have a regular pattern of every week we want to talk about giving one way, but we rotate. We have a rotation of ways that we talk about our giving. One week is a part of our worship. Another week
Mm.
we talk about it of the impact that we're able to make in our church. We were able to because of your giving, we were able to make this, we were able to make this impact in our student ministry, or we were able to
Mhm.
add this new service. We were able to do this type of thing. Another week, we talk about how we give out to the community. And so we
Yeah.
were able to bless this, local resource or able to partner with this outside organization. And because we do that rotation, it doesn't become like so
Mhm.
repeated. It doesn't feel like
Mm.
we're beating a dead horse every time that we get up there from the stage to talk about it, right?
Right.
And then we try to at least once a month to tell a story. Like
Yeah.
those stories just go so far because they
Mhm.
show the heart. They show that
Mhm.
lives are being changed, right? And so I
Mhm.
feel like that makes a big difference in just bringing that heart.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
what I was gonna
Jesus
speak
is
to.
there to help us come out of our uncomfortableness, right?
Mm.
So we have to just let God do that work.
Mm.
And it's overcoming
Yes,
a very small piece of anxiety for
Mm.
the good of the kingdom.
Mm.
I love that.
So it should be an active encouragement to
Yes.
start talking about it. So I'm really hoping that we've done that today, and
Yeah.
that we'll hopefully get some pastors out there, some priests thinking about how they're going to position giving in their next services.
So good.
Mm.
Nicole, as we wrap up today, I'm just curious if you were able, if we're thinking about these ministry leaders that are on the other side of this podcast, what's one encouragement that you would give to them as they're working to improve their giving? What's something you would say to encourage them today?
Oh, I would say after you listen to this, just sit and pray. Pray about where you're being led to speak about giving and why giving is important. This is not about church staff salaries. This is about our
Mm.
Right.
communities that we're trying to serve. And prayerfully consider, where you're at
Yep.
right now and where you're being called to
Mm.
expand on that, and
Yes.
just see what happens and just listen to the Lord. And I think that's where the magic truly is.
Mm.
I think that's amazing. Nicole, thank you so much for talking with us today and being on here. And overall, I'm just super excited about, how these ministry leaders are going to do, what they're going to be able to do and how they're going to be able to increase the faithfulness of their giving and inspire their community to give through this new resource. And I'm excited about all that God's going to do through it.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope everybody loves this amazing report, whether you're a
Hmm.
parish or a church. We've got something for everybody, and there's so much more to learn. These ebooks are great. So dig in, and we're always here if you've got questions.
Love that. For all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for being a part of this with us today. If this has been helpful to you, definitely dig into the report, the free
Hmm.
ebook that we're going to have. We're going to put that in the show notes so that you can download that. It is completely free,
Hmm.
and we want to make sure that we get that in your hands. Jess, thank you for being on here to talk with us today, too.
I love it.
For all of our listeners, make sure if this has been an encouragement to you, share this with somebody. We want to make sure that we get this in the ears of as many church leaders as we can. Definitely hit that subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss out on future resources. And I would say until next time, keep leading well right there where you are in your community. You are making a big difference. We'll see you right back here next week on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.